What's up guys, it's Aaronitmar, and today we are going to be discussing a theory regarding Smash Ultimate and its second round of DLC, and more specifically a theory that attempts to rule out certain characters based on random criteria, because Smash fans just love to do that. So buckle up, hit that subscribe button, and let's just jump in. So the theory cropped up on a 4chan thread, and it has to do with the recording of voice lines for different aspects of the game, with a focus on the crowd cheers that can be heard in Smash. When a certain character is doing well in a match, a crowd will do little chants for that character. So the issue this person has brought up has to do with the cheers and the differences between Fighter Pass 1 and Fighter Pass 2. In Fighter Pass 1, there were different cheers for characters depending on the language of the game, even if the character didn't have a different name in those languages. For instance, here's Banjo and Kazooie's crowd cheers in a couple of different languages.
Banjo-Kazooie! Banjo-Kazooie! Banjo-Kazooie!
We can tell that these are quite different, despite the fact that their names are effectively the same in each language. The user points out on 4chan though that this treatment doesn't seem to carry over into Fighter Pass 2. If we look at the characters we've gotten so far, one thing sticks out. There are effectively only 1 or 2 versions of each crowd cheer rather than the 8 or 9 that seem to exist for the base roster or for the first Fighter Pass. Let's look at Steve and all of the different alternates that come with him. All of them have a single cheer each, and it's clearly a group of Japanese speakers saying their Japanese names. Another example are Pyra and Mithra, who only have 2 versions, one where their names are in English and another where their names are in Japanese, but they are the exact same cheers across all of the languages. English, Italian, Dutch, Russian, these all have the exact same cheer, and the same goes for Japanese and Korean, it just depends on which name they want the region to have. So this post on 4chan is saying that because Smash didn't hire voice actors for crowd cheers in other regions, characters whose names are wildly different in those regions are not going to be included in the second Fighter Pass. The Pokemon are an example of this. Jigglypuff, for example, is named Purin in Japanese, Rondoudou in French, Pummeluff in German. Not only does the announcer need to say all of these for each version of the game, but the actual voice for the character of Jigglypuff also needs to match. And because of that, the crowd cheer also must match, because you wouldn't want Rondoudou to be cheered with the name Jigglypuff. It doesn't match up. The post goes further by saying that this specifically only targets Pokemon and Sonic. Sonic characters that are represented in Smash, like Shadow and Knuckles, have all been localized for different languages of the game. And because Smash would want to keep this consistent, a potential Sonic character for the actual roster would too need voice acting for each and every different language, just like Pokemon. So effectively, what this theory is stating is that we won't be seeing any Pokemon or Sonic characters for Fighter Pass 2, or by extension, anyone with substantially different names in different regions. The problem with this is, of course, it doesn't really make sense. The basis of this theory is essentially, this is how X and Y have happened, so Z must follow this rule. And it kind of follows the principle of correlation does not equal causation. In other words, just because we observe a series of details does not mean that they are following a cause and effect pattern. So just because the characters have not had different names worldwide does not mean that they were chosen specifically for that reason. It's really just not that simple, and I kind of want to go at it point by point. One of the main arguments is that Xander Mobus, the announcer of both Smash 4 and Ultimate, has stated that he himself is unaware of the actual real roster for the games until they are actually revealed, because during the recording, Nintendo feeds him a bunch of red herring and dummy lines. He's essentially conditioned to believe that what he's reading doesn't actually equate to certain characters. So for example, Snake was among a giant list of animals, or the game Duck Hunt was amongst other NES games. So the argument is that similar situations must be happening for the crowd cheers. In other words, they would get a bunch of people in a room, have them scream a bunch of different cheers for various characters, not knowing who the real characters were, and that applies to each and every language the game has, so they're basically doing this like 10 times. And at that point, they may as well be recording for all the different characters if they're also recording dummy lines as well. The problem with this is, of course, that it's purely speculative. By that logic, the musicians would also have to record a bunch of different songs from a wide variety of games in order to prevent them from knowing the series the character is from, or just the straight up character. And there are plenty of instances we can point to where this isn't the case, but I think the example that is most similar is none other than Grant Kirkhope. When it was decided that Banjo and Kazooie were going to be in Smash, Grant Kirkhope was contacted to compose the cover of the main theme that would come with the character. Now, based on this announcer logic, they would have sent him many songs to compose in order to prevent him from knowing that Banjo and Kazooie were the actual picks. Which of course makes no sense. It would be a ton of man hours that would be spent on something ultimately never going to be used, and Grant Kirkhope of course has confirmed that he was just straight up told it's going to be Banjo and Kazooie. So I think that whatever information Xander has given us, I think it's just exclusive to him as an announcer, for whatever reason Nintendo has. It's a single person who's booked for a few hours to read out random strings of words, so even if 90% of what he reads goes unused, they're not going to be out a ton of money. Now obviously I can't explain why he alone is given this treatment but no one else seems to be, but it's just the information that we have to go off of. If you're paying one person for 5 hours of work when you really only need 1 hour of content, you're out some money, but it's not a huge loss. But now if you have to pay 15 people for that 5 hours of work, suddenly the money spent goes up exponentially, and it simply doesn't make financial sense to protect this information at that kind of cost. But the financials of it lead me into my second point. The argument made is that for Fighter Pass 2, Nintendo specifically chose mostly characters who have the exact same name across the globe, or characters who don't have a substantial difference in their voice acting, like they don't speak a totally different language, for the different regions. And that just doesn't make sense. Can you imagine a meeting at Nintendo where they go, alright, we're doing a Gen 8 Pokemon, it's gonna be Cinderace, he is going to be the final character on Fighter Pass 2. And Sakurai goes, wait a second, his name's different in Europe, that's not gonna work, pick someone else. Like, what? Why would that be the case? This theory is looking at details and deriving a pattern from it, but it's assuming that there is an overarching reason behind it when really it could just be something that's worked out so far. The first 3 characters of Fighter Pass 2 all have the same names globally, and Pyra and Mythra are so far the only ones to have different names, and even then they only have Japanese names and English names. But to assume Nintendo is specifically only choosing characters with universal names, it's just kind of dumb. We also have to remember that a lot of the development for Fighter Pass 2 is happening during the height of the pandemic. Remember that thing where Nintendo basically didn't release anything substantial for like 3/4 of the year? We didn't even get news at all? Either Nintendo is incredibly mismanaged and unorganized, or they were simply trying to be conservative because of how uncertain things were at the time. But the pandemic absolutely hit their ability to develop games, financially or not, and that would impact all areas of development and not just like actual programmers or 3D modelers. So personally, based on this, I think they just saw an opportunity to cut corners. It just happened to work out that the characters so far in the past had the same names, so they just said, alright, the Japanese voice lines are going to be fine. No one will be mad that they say Steve-oo instead of Steve, and we could save ourselves a little bit of money by not having to hire other people. Also, this part of the post doesn't even really make sense. The French, Italian, German, and Spanish do not pronounce Pyra and Mythra in the correct language. I mean, the actual game Xenoblade Chronicles 2 also doesn't do that. The only voice options for the game are English and Japanese. Hey, just like Smash. Sure, I guess they could have hired voice actors to say Pyra and Mythra in Spanish and French and all the other languages, but the actual game they're from doesn't even do that, and this would be the first time ever that those regions would be hearing those names in the quote-unquote correct language for them. It just again seems like this was an opportunity to save some money. Heck, they even went over budget on Fighter Pass 1, which is what led us to have all of those Sakurai presentations. So it's really not that crazy to assume that any area that Nintendo or the Smash team can save a little cash, they're going to. So let's say a Pokemon did get in. Nintendo would just simply hire the voice actors that they need and get it done. It's better to spend $10,000 on lines for a single character than $50,000 for all of the characters if you can get away with it. I just think Nintendo is trying to save as much money as possible here. And frankly, so far it all just kind of seems like a coincidence, but Smash fans just love to try to find the tiniest theories and patterns out of stuff that just kind of seem to happen. And I don't even personally want a Pokemon on the second Fighter Pass, but here I am defending the possibility because this theory just doesn't make sense. So let me know what you guys think of this theory down in the comments below. And until next time, guys, peace out, and please remember to be good to one another.